One of the greatest moral shaming tactics that I've personally noticed when it comes to the golems, the NPCs, the normies, is that they will shame you for walking away from a bad deal. If you and you see this today with people like Gen Z people quiet quitting society, right? That's my generation. I'm Gen Z, right? Gen Z quiet quitting society, walking away from a bad deal, quiet quitting, the system. One of the things that people will do if they're a part of the herd is that they will shame you for not being responsible for their happiness. And what this fundamentally is that it's collectivism. It's basically like the happiness of the collective and the well-being of the collective matters more than your individual happiness. The individual doesn't matter. The individual happiness of you doesn't matter. It's always about the collective. It's all about business as usual. And this is something that is just I've never been able to quite put a finger on it, but that's exactly one of the things that we're taught from a very young age is that your happiness is contingent on the collective happiness of the people around you. So that if you behave like yourself, if you act in a way that is that makes people unhappy, not that you're being a menace, not that you're attacking people, not that you're going after people or whatever, but that you're just being yourself, you're just being your true self, and then you make people mad, you make the normies sneed at you, that you're somehow responsible for their happiness. You're responsible for you shutting up so that they're happy. That you're like, yet again, the happiness of the herd is what matters. And every system that we're put into, whether it's school, colleges, work, right? Like the collective happiness matters more. Like nobody cares about you as an individual. And so, as soon as you walk away from a bad deal, as soon as you walk away from a system that benefits off suicidal empathy, that you care more about other people than you care about yourself, that's not necessarily. It's good to have empathy. It's good to have the ability to help people if it's within your power to do so, right? Because you can't help other people if you can't help yourself, right? So you need to have a balance here where it's like you're responsible for your happiness first, and then if it's within your power, to buy a homeless person food or whatever, then go ahead and do that. Like the world needs more of that for sure. I think that there's enough widespread suffering or whatever on the planet. So if it's within your power to help someone, then you should totally do it. But don't do it at the expense of your own well-being. Don't do it at the expense of yourself. Trying to appease the collective happiness at your own expense. That like this system runs off of individuals sacrificing themselves for the collective. And this is something that I really notice is it's a huge program in movies. Especially this makes me think of like the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies, where it's like anytime Peter Parker is happy and he's living his life and he's able to show up to dates on time, he's able to have a good job, a well-paying job, or he shows up on time because he's not doing the Spider-Man stuff, right? I think it was the second movie where he quit being Spider-Man and he was finally happy as an individual. He got good grades in college, right? He was able to get his shit together in his own personal life, but but the city's not happy, right? And anytime the city's happy, anytime like all of the big supervillains are in jail and he's taking care of stuff with Spider-Man, it's always at his expense, right? It's almost like there's this weird, and maybe it's a false dichotomy too, but like there's this weird false dichotomy that is a part of the program, which is basically telling you that your individual happiness is evil. If you care only about your individual happiness, you're not doing the Uncle Ben. You're not with great power comes great responsibility, right? Like you're not doing that. So your individual happiness is evil. You need to sacrifice your happiness in order to take care of the herd, take care of the collective, and that seems to be the main program, right? And I think that why not both? I think that you should establish a basis for your individual happiness, and if you have the power and the means to do so, then you should be able to take care of other people, be able to help other people in any way that you can. But this does seem to be like a moral shaming tactic. That anytime you start to value your own happiness, your own individual, your own individual success, your own individual happiness, if you walk away from a bad deal, if you quiet quit society, if you decide that you're not going to be a part of a system that is going against you, if you decided to withdraw, to sort of unplug from a system that takes more from you than it gives you, like if you're getting diminishing returns from society, one of the things that will happen is that you'll get the normies that come out of the woodwork and they'll moral shame you. It's very much like a military draft where it's like, oh, why don't you want to fight in the wars? You're just a coward. You're just like, you don't want to fight for your country or whatever, right? But then you look at, okay, why am I going to die for a bunch of oil billionaires, right? And so this is a very important moral shaming tactic to be aware of, is that like never let people shame you for caring about your individual happiness. Never let people shame you for walking away from a shitty deal, even if it's at the expense of collective happiness, even if it's at the expense of, like the happiness of other people, which is mostly dependent on your compliance. It's not necessarily, and yet like you walking away is, it's not necessarily that you're causing a ruckus, that you're causing, harm to other people by walking away. You're just looking out for yourself, and these people, it's almost like they're parasites, like they're vampires. It's almost like they hate it whenever you stop giving into their vampirism, when you stop giving and giving and giving, and like they're not able to take and take anymore. They're not able to, take more from you than they give you. Right, and so I think it's a really important thing to sort of realize that this is a moral shaming tactic that that I do see a lot, is that people will shame you for looking out for yourself. People will shame you for looking out for your own individual happiness. That basically the main program here, like the main thing that they tell you, is that the collective happiness is your happiness. That you're responsible for the happiness of the collective. You're responsible for the happiness of the most amount of people, and that's what's important, is that you need to appease and be likable to the most amount of people, and that if you decided that your individual happiness, that your individual power, that your individual freedoms, your ability to live a free life, if you decide that that's more important, then they shame you for being a bad person. Because that's what morality is to a normie. That's what morality is to a golem, is that like their morality is fundamentally based on the collective. The collective is their lifeblood, right? The cattle, like the cattle that they're a part of, is their lifeblood, right? Like the collective the happiness of the collective is your happiness, right? Like, and so anytime and this is why people are afraid of doing things that piss off the herd. Like they're afraid of being unpopular. They're afraid of doing things their own way, because they don't want to touch or to mess with the happiness of the herd. They want to. It's a constant game of trying to appease the herd, trying to appease the collective, right? And so I think that this whole idea that like the herd is more important than you, that you don't matter, the collective matters more than you as an individual, your individual happiness, your individual freedoms, your individual authority over your own existence, like that doesn't matter. And if you care about those things, that means you're a bad person, because you're not supporting the collective. You're not supporting like you're not supporting the cattle, right? Which is it's false messaging. Don't let people morally shame you for caring about yourself as an individual. Your individual self, your individual happiness, your individual power and authority over your own life, it matters more than the collective. The collective doesn't care about you, so don't be afraid of walking away from a shitty deal. Don't be afraid of um, you know, saving yourself at the expense of the herd. Because yet again, the herd doesn't care about you. They wouldn't care. Like they wouldn't notice if you died right now. If you died right now, they wouldn't notice. They wouldn't care. They would just blink and move on, right? So why would you care about like what they think of your, like you pursuing like an individual path, your individual happiness, right? So don't let people think that you're a bad person for caring about yourself as an individual. The collective doesn't care about individuals. So of course, the like caring about the individual, caring about your individual self, is the greatest form of evil in the mind of a normie, in the mind of the collective, in the mind of people who are a part of the collective. The greatest evil is people who care about themselves, people who are, people who value the individual over the collective, right? So yeah, just don't let that moral shaming tactic get to you. It's fucking bullshit. But yeah, that's the video.